Now on BBC4, how a few young writers and liberal helpings of sex and illegal drugs fueled the rise and fall of the modern review, with strong language and graphic descriptions of drug taking from the start, when Toby met Julie.
In 1991, an unusual photo was taken in a luxurious London flat. The Modern Review was a brand new arts periodical. To honour its birth, its title was written in cocaine by one of Britain's most famous journalists.
Yes, I did that, because Toby had just done something. I think either he just put the first copy to bed, or I don't remember anyway. He just does something. I was very pleased with him. So I just thought, wait till Toby arrives and we'll give him a good welcome. So I put that out for him, and he had to snot it down.
Julie Burchill, Fleet Street icon and iconoclast, self-styled disco bunny and queen of the Groucho Club, was the magazine's biggest name. Toby Young was her protégé, her best friend and the magazine's editor. Provocative, publicity-hungry, they had a mission to take on the establishment and revolutionise arts coverage.
We passionately believed that you could be both intelligent and very well educated, and at the same time your culture could be the same as that of someone who wasn't particularly intelligent, who wasn't particularly well educated. There was a universal culture which was democratic and which was completely accessible, but wasn't bad.
The Modern Review's short life is a tale of bold innovation and of drugs, sex, feuds and betrayal. It ended in a blood-curdling street fight between two talented people who thought they loved each other. The Modern Review was conceived in summer 1990 at Thorpe Park in Surrey. Julie loved thrills and spills.
Julie and Cosmo and I came down to Thorpe Park with Jack, their 4-year-old son, for the day. And it was while we were here that we came up with the idea for the magazine.
We were waiting in one of those monstrous queues that take 3 days to get to the fun ride.
I don't remember being in a queue, no. There is a lot of queuing at these sorts of places. Do you think it matters if there's a discrepancy between my version of events and his?
He sort of said, I've got an idea for a magazine. What do you think, gang? Let's do a magazine that treats popular culture in a kind of intelligent way. And I could see sort of light bulbs, bing, coming on, and me and Julie thought this is a good idea.
I just said out of nowhere, I think we should start a magazine and call it The Modern Review. I did this partly because even though I was much younger than my husband and because I was much less educated than Toby, I was always the person who had to make things happen because that's just what I do. And the minute I said it, I thought, where did that come from? But of course, they totally jumped on it because, like, boys like that, it's their dream to have a little magazine and all that crap, you know what I mean? Whereas it wasn't a thing I did like growing up, like pining over when I was like a teenager in Bristol. But then, because they were literary boys, they practically wet themselves.
Toby had this sort of, he had the conception, and I think he wanted us to be part of the paternity of it. He wanted us to fertilize it with encouragement and whatever, and we were going to be its parents as well. But it was definitely Toby's baby.
So he says, Toby came up with the idea, and then you two kind of latched onto it. And the whole day, he said, it was like great. They were like light bulbs.
No, I'm not a latcher on. It was my idea and my title, definitely.
I'm not absolutely certain exactly whose idea it was. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was mine, but...
Cosmo says it was yours.
Does he? OK, well, then I guess it was mine. What does Julie say?
She says it was hers.
Does she?
I mean, mean, this was their fantasy ride. This was the thing that was going to make them happy and scared. So I guess I'd done my bit.
Whoever's baby it was, the Modern Review had 3 parents, Toby, Julie and Cosmo. And they were all agreed about what it had to do.
Let's have a new approach to popular culture. Let's be able to have a magazine where we can talk about all the things that we're talking about anyway, which I always think is the best way of having a magazine. You know, you should do a magazine because you need an outlet for what moves you.
So much you can't hide. Put on a little makeup, make sure they get you good side, good side.
They wanted to do something that's old hat now, but was still unusual in Mrs. Thatcher's Britain. To write intelligently about mass culture, movies, TV, pop, without sneering at all of it, and without being a candidate for Sude's Corner. They'd each grown up with pop culture, and together they'd consumed a lot of it since they first met in the early 80s.
I first met Toby Young in 1982. I was living here with my parents, and Toby was living here with his parents. And I used to walk by here. I used to see this strange little blonde kid. He used to hang out of this window here. And he would always greet me with these abusive cries of, "Oi, fucking hippie, you, fuck off, get your hair cut." I didn't even have hippie hair in those days, so how he knew I used to be hippie, I could never really figure out. Anyway, he used to sit there and he used to sing these crazy kind of right-wing songs like "Tomorrow Belongs to Me."
I don't think I actually, leant out of the window and when I first saw him and sang that song. I'm sure I didn't.
I mean, he was obnoxious, he was irritating, he was obscene, and I knew I was going to like him straight away because he had this great capacity to get up your nose, but to be kind of funny.
Soon afterwards, Julie, then married to Tony Parsons and living in Billericay, met Cosmo.
Cosmo was like the most, he was really cute then. He looked like John Taylor from Duran Duran, and he was like sleeping with half the women in like SW10, quarter of the women at SW3. And I thought he was like a total catch, but I thought he was totally out of my league, which is so cute. I was just this like provincial housewife, and go on. And so I just thought, geez, what a dreamboat, and I just thought we were going to have like this like torrid affair, which we did.
They didn't come much hipper than Julie in those days. She was considered, because of her, not only from the NME days, but the face, she was considered the writer that, smart people read. She was funnier in person than she actually was on the page. And she could be very charming and great company, and she could love bomb you. If she wanted to grab your heart, she would.
He was like every Gentile girl's idea of a big, sexy Jew. And like worrying all the time, reading all the time, and just really good in bed. And so Bob's Your Uncle, it was like all your Christmases came at once. I was still keeping one toe in Billericay, and then one night I fell asleep on the sofa, and I said in my sleep, in front of Parsons, I said, "Cosmo, give it to me." So it's not like I said, "John or Henry, give it to me." I mean, how many Cosmos do you know? Do you know what I mean? So I was banged to rights on that one.
With nowhere else to run to, Julie quit Billericay and moved in with Cosmo at Duncan Terrace, which is where Toby, then 18, first met her.
I went round to number 8 Duncan Terrace, and there was, the Queen herself kind of ensconced in his bedroom.
He was gorgeous. I sound like that woman in, Oh, he was lush. Oh, he was gorgeous. Even Toby was gorgeous when I met him. He looked like Kevin Bacon.
They were an unlikely duo. The 24-year-old ex-punk gunslinger and queen of journalistic cool from a working-class estate in Bristol, and Islington N1 Toby, brash son of a Labour lord famous for good works, now 18 and studying at Oxford.
Toby, even though his dad wasn't a proper lord, he was just a created one, Toby had very much got into the thing of being a young lord. And he actually, at one point, I said to him, don't do that. He had some notepaper printed up with the "On Toby Young" on it, and he used to go on this big stentorian voice as though he was like Churchill a lot of the time, which was a bit stupid, but I soon kicked that out of him.
He was so unlike you in his background, wasn't he?
Yeah. I like that, though, because I think it's a sign of weakness to cleave to too much to people who are similar to oneself. I thought we could learn stuff from each other, and the most important thing to me in any relationship is, can they make me laugh?
Within days of meeting her, you know, she was suddenly my closest friend.
Show me the meaning of the word.
Whenever we got drunk together, we'd always end up in a bathroom somewhere, hacking at our thumbs and attempting to mix our blood. Well, neither of us were the most hood person in the world, so of course we never carried a knife on us. So it was always like catch as catch can. So towards the end of the evening, we'd end up hacking at our thumbs with, like, if someone had a pencil sharpener, doing that. And of course, it was damn messy.
I think we may have done it once.
Julie sort of gives the impression you did it pretty often.
With a pencil sharpener.
I think her recollection probably isn't as accurate as mine.
I don't know about you, but I'm not saying I've done it with everybody, but you do it sometimes with people you wouldn't look at sober. I can think of a few people I've done that with, and I didn't know who they were the next day. So it's not that profound, is it?
What, mixed blood?
Not when you're really drunk and you're in the media. See, this is like shaking hands for us.
In order to prove my loyalty to Julie, I climbed out onto a window ledge and offered to jump. Julie said, "Go on then, jump, go on, show me how much you love me, jump." And I rather sheepishly had to crawl back in at that point because it turned out I didn't love her quite enough to commit suicide.
For the rest of the 80s, Toby, Julie and Cosmo often hung out together in London. Julie, Stalinist turned Thatcherite, had a Mail on Sunday column. Cosmo freelanced as a writer and film critic. Toby dreamt of becoming a philosopher, but things had changed a bit between him and Cosmo.
Cosmo said he used to feel so shut out. He said, I felt like the dad, the boring old dad driving the kiddies around, and of course Toby and I would be giggling and intriguing in the back seat.
I was the sane, rational, sensible one, and they were the naughty kids much more, I think. I think I was much more the grown-up.
I guess he was our dad, but that's what he had to give to be allowed to hang around with us. I'm not being mean, but everybody finds their own level, don't they?
There wasn't really an erotic component to my affection for her. It was more like a romantic friendship. I mean, I certainly loved her, but in a kind of platonic way.
3 months after the Thorpe Park trip, Toby had produced 2 dummy editions. The look, austere, print-heavy. Dummy 2 featured a Cambridge Don praising Thomas Harris's novels at the expense of Thomas Pynchon's. Julie lambasted fashion, maintaining the only use for clothes is sexual attraction.
Beyond that, you're on your own. You're either smart or stupid, and clothes can never help you.
Last name Simpson, first name Bart.
Toby had done most of the hard graft.
The next step in the big Bart.
I thought, he knows what he's doing. The reason I let Toby go and do that and put my name on it is because I had a feeling that he'd do it really, really well, and he totally did do it well.
Because he says, you know, he didn't really know anything about running
didn't know
magazines,
anything?
really, yeah.
Well, he could afford me.
The opening editorial proclaimed,
Mass culture shouldn't be put on a pedestal, but it shouldn't be dismissed out of hand either.
but Toby wasn't sure they'd cracked it.
I wanted to do another dummy to see, and I said, no, fuck that, go for it. Pull the trigger, let's get on with it and do it.
In the winter of 90 to 91, Toby hawked the dummies around London trying to raise capital, with little success.
Jeffrey Archer turned us down, Morris Saatchi, Melvin Bragg. The list was endless.
Salvation came from Peter York, style guru and Julie's mentor since the 70s. She once wrote that he meant more to her than any other man except her dad.
I'm not sure who asked me for money in the first place, but I sort of knew it was somebody was going to pitch up and ask me for some money. And the truth was, if Julie had said she wanted to do a tree-hugging magazine, I would have gulped deeply and pitched up some money for it. Well, that's how I felt about them, and I would have been absolutely confident that I would have come round to tree-hugging in the end.
For a magazine with big ambitions, the budget was always minute. York contributed most, nearly £17,000. Julie was a co-director of the company, but only seems to have put up a few grand.
That's not the way I see it, and that's not what my bank accounts tell me, or what my accountant from the time would tell me. But anyway, whatever Toby wants.
Well, he's got these figures he showed us, which showed that Peter York was by far the biggest backer of the magazine.
Oh, maybe that's true, maybe I forgot.
It's no secret that the stars are falling from the sky. It's no secret that our world is happiness tonight. They say the sun is sometimes
By summer 1991, Toby had scraped together just enough to finance a first edition, costing a fraction of a normal launch budget. Just 6 weeks later, issue 1 was almost ready. But lack of funds meant lateral thinking.
In order to produce a camera-ready copy, we needed an A3 laser printer.
Tom Schoen, Toby's literary editor, also worked at Robert Maxwell's European, which had the technology required. Schoen let Toby's team in for a secret mission, but Toby left a calling card.
By an extraordinary stroke of ill fortune, the editor-in-chief of the European, when he came in the morning, found this discarded sheet of paper in a bin, which included the acknowledgement box in which we had thanked Robert Maxwell for sort of unknowingly allowing us to use all his resources to produce the magazine.
Cap and Bob declared war on the Modern Review. He set the police on Toby for alleged burglary, threatening to sue the magazine and run its proprietors out of business.
Maxwell already had a reputation, and you thought, if he really does sue us, if he really, really takes it to the limit, which is sledgehammers and nuts and things for flies and everything, I mean, it was undignified and really made him look silly, I thought. But if he takes it to the limit, and he did love his lawyers, we would have been squashed flat. But apart from that, he might have cleaned us all out as well.
I remember being at the big summit for Should We Fight Maxwell that was organized by Toby at the lawyers, and we were sitting around one of these big tables.
It was the magazine's darkest hour. Toby knew Tom Schoen wanted to surrender to avoid being fired.
I thought, I'll start with Cosmo, who I know I can completely depend on. So I started with Cosmo. Yeah, let's fight this guy. I'm not giving up for that guy. Get out of here. Let's fight him. Let's fight him all the way. Whatever it takes, we'll fight him. You know, Churchillian.
It was like something out of Braveheart. You know, kind of went round the table, fight. Next guy, fight. You know, so by the time it kind of got to you, you were kind of like, I guess we fight, you know.
It was our chance to take on a really big target, Robert Maxwell. We really felt that at last we weren't just some Ponzi commentators on popular culture. We were fighting a real battle now. Most of us were all fired up. We wanted war.
Shortly afterwards, significant news.
I remember getting a call at 4 o'clock in the morning from a friend of mine who was the Reuters correspondent in Kenya. And he'd just seen something on The Wire that he thought I should know about. He called me, woke me up in the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning. Toby, I'm reading you this from The Wire. Robert Maxwell, Missing at Sea. And I was like, thank you, God!
Toby still got a hefty legal bill, but by then, the first edition had long since hit the newsstands. It included a 2-page eulogy to Terminator 2. One Don compared The Who with Stravinsky. Another suggested Paul Gascoigne had Tourette's syndrome. Tom Shone, sacked by Maxwell, attacked Martin Amis. And setting the tone, Julie's savaging of John Savage's book about punk.
It is not we who sleep, if only, but Savage himself, dreaming of a golden, glorious lost empire that never was. Punk. Go back to sleep, John.
Julie's victims soon hit back.
I couldn't see any point to the magazine whatsoever. The Cambridge Don is not an expert in popular music, and it showed.
He clearly didn't like the magazine because we gave his book a bad review.
Oh, that's absolute bollocks.
Well, let's keep it away from the personal.
It's just stupid.
Well,
and where's Julie Burchill? Is she scared to appear, Toby? Why buy the magazine if you can read it all elsewhere? That's the main point, which you haven't addressed.
Should we give Richard a turn, Jane?
I'm at a disadvantage in that I'm extremely ignorant about popular culture. I hardly know who this chap Arnold Schwarzenegger is.
There were other attacks, and plaudits too, even from Fleet Street. Few could have realised just how small the Modern Review was. Each couple of months, a new edition was produced in the sitting room of Toby's flat in Shepherd's Bush, West London.
Oddly, there's no blue plaque. Perhaps that'll be rectified when this is broadcast.
I'd have to pretend to be the receptionist. Good morning, Modern Review. My secretary. I'm afraid he's in a meeting right now. And our tight-fisted accountant. Hello, can I help you? You know, if anyone called up asking for money, I'd be like, yeah, I'm sorry, no, wrong time of the month, call back in a month, sorry. During the kind of final week, just before we took the magazine down to the printers, this place would be literally stuffed to the gills with people helping out, kind of reading copy, subbing it, writing headlines, photo captions, writers tearing in with last-minute articles, the art director fussing about not having the right pictures. The art director would squeeze in between me and it, and literally it would be teeming with people.
Julie and Cosmo had gone up market, moving to a posh apartment in Bloomsbury, the other side of town.
I was like a total like Queen Bee, like looming in this Bloomsbury eerie. Then I'd have to go around to Toby's and Shepherd's Bush. You were well grubby. And I used to sometimes think, ha, ha, ha. I came from the fucking working classes. My mother made cardboard boxes. And now look at you and look at me. That's a horrible thing to say, and it's not good to gloat, but yeah, it gave me a real big kick. I like that. I thought, how do they work in here? But that was part of the greatness of Toby at the time. He wasn't interested in fancy offices. He knew that we couldn't afford to have overheads. And he turned his own nasty little home, it was nasty enough anyway, he turned it into a place just full of, a place which was producing a magazine.
Toby's annual wage was £3,000. Most of the staff were paid next to nothing. They sometimes got their reward in Bloomsbury.
There were two camps. There was the Toby camp, where basically you had to get down and work. I think there was this side over here in Bloomsbury where you came to have fun. This was R&R over here, where the troops would be taken over for an evenings of stimulation.
I guess any responsible person would have given them, like, you know, tea and, you know, a nice hot meal. But I just, like, lay on about 8 grams of coke, you know. These boys ain't seen nothing like it in their lives. They had that bunch of hard rocks piling in. And they'd go out there with they were ready to go. I used to write their names in it and they had to snort their name. So if you called Tom, it wasn't too good, but if you called Nicholas, you were quite happy.
Nicholas Blincoe, now a novelist, then a contributor to the Modern Review. Worked at Toby's, partied at Julie's.
The main consequence of only seeing Julie at night was she was always completely off her face. She kept cocaine in a kind of little tablet bottle, the type that would maybe have 50 headache tablets in it, but it was halfway filled up with Coke all the time. And she was like, incredibly generous with it.
Little brown bottle?
Yeah, apparently you had your Coke in a little brown medicine bottle.
Oh, bless me.
Do you remember that?
Nah, but I was very generous with it, God. Yeah, I was.
Inevitably, you know, if you do throw sex into the mix and you throw drugs into the mix and you juice it all up with alcohol, eventually, you know, that's a pretty combustible cocktail, and eventually it's all going to explode. And it did.
Always living dangerously, over the next couple of years, the magazine found its voice. Featuring some established writers, it prided itself on long, feisty pieces from young contributors like Nick Hornby and Will Self, both hip to mass culture and still to break through as big names. The presiding spirit was Julie Burchill, tearing apart what she hated and celebrating what she loved, however pop.
No music has the raw power of teeny bop, because no other pop is so much about hormones, about adoration, about sex or about beauty. No pop, certainly not with dirty, grungy stuff, is so purely orgiastic. I guess, looking back through stuff I've read, that The Independent and The Guardian, yeah, in those days wouldn't have devoted 3,000 words to take that. Girls, uncool, unashamed and undone, are the presiding spirit of pop. Not the boys, women and grown men who yell for Guns N' Roses. Axel may come for their daughters, but your daughters, believe it, have come many times, even on school nights, for Take That. That's just where I felt, because I'd never been through academia. The purity of my love for popular culture, I'd never been sullied by too much over-examination. So it was easy for me to do. It was no trouble for me to do. But yeah, we were unusual, I know that, but I only know because Toby taught me that. I meant myself sound like Toby's gimp. It's like he kept me in a box and did the freaking stairs and took me out every 2 weeks and told me what to do. But yeah, it was good being Toby's gimp.
The Modern Review made its reputation partly by hitting out at other people's. Sometimes they assaulted each other's, as when Will Self wrote a lacerating review of Nick Hornby's first novel.
Hornby's protagonist, Rob Fleming, is just a moron. Hornby wants us to sympathise with Fleming by laughing at his foibles and feckless forays into the world of romance. But we don't. Or at any rate, I didn't. I just rather wanted him to leave. There's a streak of kind of mean, eye-gouging, scrotum-twisting, you know, arsehole kicking that is quite unpleasant. And, you know, I'm not really that proud of having engaged in it. We were all kind of, again, youngish writers starting out at that point with a lot to prove and, you know, going equipped, as it were, to break and enter the literary establishment, whatever that is, you know, going equipped with a screwdriver and a sort of rubber-coated torch to bop people on the head with.
The magazine's strongest venom was reserved for authors who'd already made it big, epitomised by Martin Amis, who'd ridiculed all mass culture as the moronic inferno.
I remember we did the review of the latest Amos novel, and accompanied we had this special dartboard made where you could fire darts into Martin Amis's eyes and heads and his lips and whatever, which provided hours of amusement for the boys back at Hopgood Street.
There was a sense around Toby and his coterie, for want of a better word, of kind of, you know, kind of willful desire to kind of epate or drag down figures that they in fact really admired. That was the sort of, you know, or were basically very envious of. I think envy was the key here. It was tedious, really.
The Amos crowd, and those people, Chris Hitchens, Salman Rushdie, they were the people that thought they were the real smart ones. We felt that they were completely out of touch, that their culture wasn't our culture, and we really wanted to sort of, you know, shake things up.
One night in the West End, Toby lampooned Amos, archpriest of high culture, for hypocritically spending 20 grand on his teeth. Toby then took some heavy punishment.
I threw him in a fire. Something I'm not proud of. I don't think, you know, it ill behooves any man of letters to resort to force. It's the last posture of a scoundrel. You have to bear in mind that he was really phenomenally irritating. I mean, a really noisome little tick. And, you know, when large quantities of alcohol and stimulant drugs come into play, these sort of things can kick off.
Unfazed by enemy fire, Toby and his followers delighted in high-profile spats. In June 1993, Issue 9 made quite a splash by cocking a snoop at Hollywood. A T-shirt echoed its cover design.
Ah, yes, the Keanu shirt. I remember it well. I never wore one myself. This is a real collector's item. By the way, where would you see a magazine today with that written on it? They wouldn't do it. It'd be The Wonderful World of Keanu. No one would use that line anymore.
The magazine itself came with absolute filth, a satirical A to Z sex guide by Julie.
See, this is why I say I'm so malleable, and whatever Toby told me to do, I would do. So if he just said, oh, go and write us a dirty book, I'd go and do it. Does that sound like a person that's a bitch? No. Shall I open it?
Inside, transcripts of the fax war between Julie and the American feminist Camille Paglia.
It's very nice. That was one of the last covers that I really, really liked.
It all started when Julie trashed Paglia's masterwork, Sexual Personae, in a damning review. Toby added fuel to the flames by asking the professor to write a piece for him, in exchange for 50 quid, plus a signed copy of Julie's latest pulp novel.
So 50 quid, a copy of No Exit and a Kit Kat. Could have offered an old dildo, she'd have done it then.
Dear Mr. Young, I'm afraid your magazine, even by your own admission, is too deeply associated in the public eye with Julie Burchill.
She dubbed Julie's review coarse and dishonest. Her parting shot:
I no longer take her seriously as a thinker or as a personality.
Livid that Toby had faxed her at home, Paglia hit back low and hard. Toby's gimp waded in with gusto.
Are you so insecure that you can't get one critical review without throwing a temper tantrum? What a fucking girl you are. Practice because you got favours so late. One day you'll learn that it comes with the territory.
Paglia's counterstrike was immediate.
I am read and translated around the world, from Japan to South America, and the basis of my fame is not just journalism, but a scholarly book on the history of culture. You are a very local commodity, completely unknown outside of England.
A sinister warning followed.
There are many ways I can help others expose you.
I don't dislike you. I think you're rather sweet. As Madonna said when asked about your obsession with her, I think it's very amusing. It's great to see an academic cube like yourself get with it. I'm very glad you're big in Japan. But the day I need your help, or alliance, which is a stupid bitch enough for me, I'll give up and go into academia. Now that really is a fate worse than death.
Paglia retaliated that Julie was a member of a chic literary insider set and had betrayed her working-class roots. Julie's final response: a short, basic scrawl straight from the streets of Bristol.
Fuck off, you crazy old dyke.
In June '94, The cover of issue 15 featured an unknown actress named Elizabeth Hurley. Plus, a cassette of Hurley reading dirty bits from another Julie novel, Ambition. Toby hoped to package the cassette with pics of Hurley posing half naked. But then she appeared in that dress by Versace. Now the overnight celeb didn't want to be heard talking dirty or seen looking like an ad in a phone box. Her lawyers blocked the photos, but not the cassette.
Shall I play it now?
Quick as a flash, she rotated her body so that she knelt on all fours over Susan, her groin in her face. Susan was set upon by the hot and avid mouths of Rosanna and Maria, the one sucking and tugging at the clitoris with her lips and teeth until it swelled to 3 times its usual size, the other darting her long and expert tongue in and out. Sweating now, unbearably aroused, Susan put her arms up around Rosanna's waist. "Please, please, your dress," she gasped. "Please, I beg you, take everything else." Like emotionless strippers, the 3 of them straightened up in the same split.
Enough of that.
The Hurley edition was the Modern Review's bestseller, apparently shifting some 30,000 copies. But Julie was unhappy with Toby, and so was Liz.
I remember once I talked to her on the phone and she said to me, it was quite flattering, "How can a woman like you go about with a thing like that?" And I suddenly got this perception of him from the outside, whereas I'd always seen him as my wonderful little boy, who's like so brilliant and talented. And I thought, oh, all these years I thought I was like lucky to know him, and I thought maybe now he's a bit of a creep.
Toby was in trouble. Soon the magazine was too. Sales gimmicks couldn't hide the basic problem. The whole of Fleet Street was now writing about popular culture. And the Modern Review was being imitated. Leading the pack, the Sunday Times, which revamped its arts coverage in 1992, doing away with all those tiresome barriers between high and low culture. Its new supplement, The Culture, owed much to the Modern Review.
It was influenced by it in the extent that it took popular culture seriously. It got away from the old review treadmill. It produced long essays about themes. It related art to life more directly. All those things that it took from the Modern Review. Modern Review did a service in the sense that it moved on. It moved things on. It got us out of this sort of art ghetto into something else, which wasn't entirely coherent, and not entirely good, but it was at least a move away from the sort of rather rigid arts ghetto of before.
I wish I was special, but I'm a creep.
The Culture also poached many of Toby's stalwart writers. Tom Schoen, Nick Hornby, even Cosmo Landesman himself. With a total investment of under £43,000, the Modern Review couldn't keep its stars or fight its competitors. By the end of 1994, sales were collapsing and the magazine was tumbling into the red. By then, there was a new arrival who'd play a key role in the bloodletting to come, Charlotte Raven.
Just like in a song from days of yore.
A millionaire's daughter, Raven was a young graduate in critical theory, out to make it as a journalist.
Toby said to me on the phone to me one day, "Here, I spoke to a girl with a great name today because he knew I like names, like pretty names." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Charlotte Raven." I said, "Oh, what a pretty name." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Not a very pretty voice, sounds like a parrot." He said, "But I'm going to have her up here and shag her anyway, and then I'll see if I want to give her a job on the magazine." And I remember at the time laughing and putting the phone down. And then throughout the day when I was going about my business, there was a strange feeling in my mind. I'm not used to feeling like a bad conscience. I don't think I've got a conscience. I'm certainly not used to feeling a sort of guilt when it nags at you. Is that what it is? But throughout that day, I felt this naggy feeling, and I didn't feel easy at all, and I always feel easy with myself. And then I was thinking that evening, I said to Cosmo, "Yeah, Toby says he's going to get somebody up there and have them, and then see if he wants to give him a job." And I remember Cosmo going, "Oh dear, oh, that's not right, baby."
Charlotte came in one day and said, "Oh, I went out for a drink with Toby last night and I slept with him." Well, I had to get it out of the way. And sort of, well, okay, if you felt you had to. And I think Toby looked kind of shell-shocked by it.
Could be just a taste, so I'm on board.
Starting as an office typist, Raven soon became a contributor. Some months later, she met Julie.
Because if a girl goes with another girl, they can't call it adultery. So what I did was called unreasonable behaviour. And all I'm saying is if anybody, man, woman or animal, had met Charlotte when she was 25 years old and not wanted to sleep with her, that would have been unreasonable behaviour, not doing it.
So what was so special?
She was very, very, very good looking.
Derek Draper, former aide to Peter Mandelson. Recruited by Toby as political editor. Charlotte's ex, he saw the whole thing develop from the start.
This was a full-blown love affair. Now, it had its physical side, but it was really an intellectual love affair. I mean, they were fascinated with each other.
I was like, she's not a lesbian. I mean, it was just silly. And Charlotte wasn't really a lesbian either. They had a very close friendship, which had just sort of spilt over into, you know, a bit of snogging.
Toby says like this didn't happen, and he says I made it up because it sounds just like the sort of thing I'd make up. I say he drew a pie chart to prove to me I wasn't gay, but he says that I made it up. But I can see that pie chart if I close my eyes. And he shaded it in, and a bit was pink and a bit was blue. Maybe I made it up though.
So he was trying to steer you away from Charlotte?
Yes, he said it was all right to do it as a hobby, but you don't want to go there full time.
I remember raising this issue with Cosmo and saying, you know, aren't you a little concerned that she's having a relationship with another woman? And he said, what, are you kidding? I love that dyke action.
I did think at one point, this is just too fucking bohemian for words. I thought, you're living in Bloomsbury, married to a big American Jew. I mean, it's like a little girl's bloody dream. And now you've got this gorgeous girlfriend as well. And he's letting it all happen. And then in a way, when I suddenly knew I was allowed to do what I wanted, you could say I'm a person who doesn't like being given... You know what I mean? I don't like being told, yeah, you can do that. And I guess it was then part of me wanting to started wanting to break my life apart, because I don't want nobody's fucking approval. I'd rather have someone's disapproval, because I can work with that.
That spring, tracked by the press, Julie left Cosmo and moved in with Charlotte.
Charlotte, she pretends to be serious-minded, but it was she who, when the paparazzi was outside asleep in the car, she knocked on the window and woke him up. She wanted her picture taken. That was good fun, though. That was the Daily Mail.
So you walked out and posed for him, basically?
No, we walked by and went, don't take pictures. As you do.
You have to see Toby as the kind of husband who was scorned and felt betrayed by his partner and his best friend, and he felt very hurt by her. And so that was the real marriage breakup that led to the end of the Modern Review.
By spring 1995, the magazine was heavily in debt. Readership was down to around 10,000, and money was shorter than ever. Soon there were rumours of a plot to oust Toby as editor and replace him with Julie's new best friend.
This is what it was with Toby and Charlotte. It wasn't anything to do with love or sex, it was sibling rivalry. To me, they were both like brilliant little kids that I was sort of facilitating in some way. And when Toby, it was like he'd been the only child for 10 years, and then this pretty little sister gets born, and oops-a-daisy, they're struggling over the toys. That's what they were doing, they were fighting over a toy, and it was called the Modern Review.
When I heard that Julie and Charlotte were an item, I thought, I was so paranoid that Charlotte was trying to take over the magazine. I thought, oh, it's all part of her master plan to become the editor. I don't really know to this day how much of that was just cocaine-fueled paranoia or whether it was actually true. I think Charlotte said, Julie, you can't be associated with a magazine that demeans and objectifies women in this way. This is, you know, you can't put women in swimsuits on the covers of magazine. That's sexist. You know, that's part of what's wrong with our society. You know, you can't. This is a negative role, blah blah blah. And you know, I think this whispering in Julie's ear was designed to poison her against me as part of Charlotte's bid for the editorship.
No matter what Toby may say, no matter what Cosmo may think, if Toby had not been shagging women, telling them they could work for my magazine, this would never have fucking happened.
And no, I certainly wasn't using the magazine as a knocking job. I was I wish I had been. I mean, here was the self-proclaimed proprietor of the magazine leaving her husband, leaving a young child, and running off with a girl from the typing pool. I mean, you know, who was using the magazine as a knocking shop?
The writing, I think, was sort of on the wall quite quickly, that they were hoping that Toby would sort of give up and hand it over, and if he wouldn't, there could be a sort of boardroom coup.
I just thought Toby's time was up, and it was that basic and that simple. As I said, other people like to sit around obsessing and thinking about stuff. I really don't. I could be thinking deeply about a thing, then I'll turn on the radio, and, like, you know, it's a good record, and my mind will go completely blank, and I'll just be thinking about that record. And I've been happy that way, and I don't want to be like other people, because they just think and worry all the time. I don't ever want to be like that.
Early in summer '95, a big meeting at the Bonington Hotel in Bloomsbury to try and prevent war.
Really felt like a showdown, because Charlotte had spoken to all of us and spoke to us on the telephone, or we went round to her flat and spoke to her. So, in a sense, we were plotting. And I feel really bad about this now, but at the same time, I'm not quite sure what I was plotting, because we had no plan at the Bonington meeting, other than we had to change things.
Toby failed to win over his critics, but some memories of the showdown are surprisingly vague.
Do you remember a big meeting at
No.
Bonington?
No.
Which Toby recalls in great detail.
Of course he does, because he's had very little to think about ever since. Toby and Cosmo were like two old misers, and they got a pot that used to be full of gold, and they're still going into the little, scraping away into that pot and trying to look at the bottom. The gold's all rotted now, and they're still looking at their pot thinking there's something in there. It's not, get over it, move on. That's what I'd say, girlfriend.
Soon after, Julie, still the name of the magazine, failed to turn up on time to an urgent fundraising seminar organised by Toby.
I called her to see whether she was on her way, and she said to me,
Toby, I never want to see your ugly little face again. You've been an embarrassment to me for years.
and that was the final straw. And I thought to myself, well, that's it. Rather than let the magazine fall into enemy hands, you know, I'm going to torch it.
Addicted, danger illustrated. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter.
Back at his flat, Toby put together the final edition of the Modern Review. Issue 21 hit the streets that June and shocked everyone who hadn't been in on the big secret.
He napalmed it. It was just burnt it. The whole thing. It was sudden. It was taken by surprise. It was, you know, Toby, it was like a guerrilla activity. Some people who had invested in the magazine would say it was an act of terrorism.
I think I knew it had been torched when I got the magazine in the post. As a subscriber, I got the magazine in the post, and it said, "That's all, folks." Got that kind of, you know, Looney Tunes thing on the front. That's all, folks, and here are some of our golden oldies, and this is why we're saying goodbye. Very shocking it was too. And the first thing I thought of is, what's going to happen to my money? Of course, the right the right thing to do, I was very shocked. I was very, very cross with Toby. And I thought, the little bastard, you know, who's never done a proper job in his life, and he's torched my money. I was furious. I didn't speak to him for years.
I thought it was kind of funny. I kind of liked it. It was just classic Toby. It was like, okay, well, let's see. I've kicked Amos' ass, I've kicked Maxwell's ass, and now what other asses are left to kick? Julie and Charlotte. You know, it was a bloody nose to them. That's what it was designed to do.
For a short while, only the Bosnian War won more column inches in the press. As Toby and Julie fell out in public, they traded a barrage of spectacular insults.
I'm just like a turtle crawling out of my shell. Bitch fest, isn't it? But at least I never took it seriously. I'm quite a tough-natured person, and I don't. Maybe I've been blessed. I don't take anything to heart myself, and maybe that's why I would think people are pretending when they say they've got feelings.
Falling out with Julie was very painful, and I had that kind of, I guess, that sense of bewilderment that people have in this situation. So why is she rejecting me? She's my best friend. You know, what's happened to suddenly make her turn on me? What have I done?
I don't think people have got as many feelings as they pretend. Is that wrong? And I just think you can call people names and nobody really cares who gets hurt. I'm sure Toby wasn't hurt by that.
At the end of it all, the Modern Review was gone, apparently never to return.
It's hugely successful. Here we are talking about it. You know, I mean, as a sort of cult object. I mean, the fact that it didn't make any money, the fact that it didn't sell to many people is true. But then again, that's almost how you define a cult object. It's a minority interest, but it sends out ripples.
Toby could tell you chapter and verse of how we changed irretrievably the landscape of cultural comment. All I can say is I'd met some nice boys, a nice girl, took loads of drugs and had a good laugh. And I'm sorry, but I'm a disco bunny at heart, and I judge things and how attractive the people I meet are and how many drugs I take. The Modern Review is slightly different, I'm afraid.
Shortly afterwards, Toby was offered a job working for Vanity Fair in Manhattan, and exile seemed a sensible solution.
I think she said in the Times that I would have to leave the country because if she ever saw me in the street, you know, she'd stab me with her nail file.
I'd obviously just seen a Godfather film or something and was copying it, and the idiot did it, and I'll never know to this day why he did it. What do you think I was going to do? Set the dogs on him? I don't know.
Shortly after that, I did indeed leave the country, but not because I was terrified of, at least not entirely because of that.
Well, he says he was going to go anyway.
Yeah, my arse.
Within 6 months, the love affair was over.
There's no need for you to say you're sorry.
But 2 years after the Modern Review's death, the magazine was born again, with Raven editing and Julie contributing.
No more, so don't you worry.
I should have been watching this particular investment, but I wasn't. I wasn't reading it with close attention, and I think by then maybe it was less entertaining. Conceivably, some people said that it was less entertaining.
Did you find it was fun?
Do you know, I can't remember.
Doesn't say much for you.
Well, by then there was such a lot to read, wasn't there?
We were really unfocused, and I mean, I can say a lot of things, but I think the basic problem with the New Modern Review is that it was crap.
The Modern Review died again after only 5 issues. Meanwhile, Julie had left London for a new life in Brighton, where she became Mrs. Raven by marrying Charlotte's younger brother.
Have you got any copies of the Modern Review at home?
Oh, only them two that Charlotte made me keep, but I didn't even want them. But I don't have any of the old ones, no. I don't save things, I don't like it. I don't save things, I partly made it sound like a policy choice, but it's usually because, like, suddenly I have to leave home real quickly, and there's not, I mean, you can just get my Lenin statue in the bag and a bits of underwear, and just really can't carry that much, can you? When you're doing a midnight flip from your husband. So, I must get my copies of the Modern Review. Damn, put them somewhere. No, that wasn't really my game plan.
We've come so far, and we've reached so high, and we've looked each day.
After 5 years in New York, Toby came back. He'd cleaned up his act, renounced coke, and married a lawyer. He and Julie hadn't spoken since 1995, when she invited him to Brighton this spring.
We've had success, we've had good times, but remember this. Being on this path of life for so long, we have walked to find.
Just bring my old Tobe and just, you know, mildly looking forward to seeing him. But I'm not wetting myself, put it that way.
I'm not sure how I'll feel about her. I don't feel like, you know, I'm this plaintiff petitioning her for forgiveness. You know, we each said some pretty nasty things about each other.
People get ideas in their heads and they want other stuff from you, like emotions and shit, all that other stuff people do. And I'm not really up for that too much. I think I probably am a hollow shell, but I think I probably am the happiest hollow shell you'll ever meet. Toby, you're late.
Oh, sorry. Nice to see you. I brought you some flowers.
Thank you, baby. I love you too. Toby's dark secret was that at heart he was a fucking decent man, and that's the dark secret that he tried to hide from the world for all those years. And that's his dark secret that I knew about, and that's why I didn't like that casting couch stuff. I thought he was doing himself down. You did!
Casting couch? I wish there was no casting couch.
I did not make that up. I'm not that much a pervert.
Do you think that, you know, we were playing with fire to a certain extent with all the drugs and the sex and the drinking and the late nights, and it was ultimately bound to kind of end in tears?
No, Tobe, that's the way Bohemia's always lived. We were just doing what we had to do.
I guess I was slightly nervous that that Julie might, suddenly on seeing me,
That little bastard! I forgot what I ate him! I hate that little bastard! Fuck off out of it!
Don't like that, you fucker!
but I'm relieved that it hasn't
I've
reacted that way.
never once said that to you.
I'm sorry I said those horrible things about you. And
I don't remember, babes.
Okay,
It's like what for ducks back. As I said, you know, I do enjoy. I like people, but not in the way other people like them, and it can't really bother me that much what people say. Unless it was like an animal that could talk. If a dog hated me, I'd really be upset. But you know, Jackie's having triplets next week.
Really?
She's now so big.
I take it Tim's not the father.
No, she married a lovely went all the way. She went from being a lesbian, she married a lorry driver. She's not married, but Richard, he's lovely. But she's so big, though, that she's allowed to have a disabled scooter in supermarkets.
Really?
Julie is now a Times columnist and has just written a lesbian teenage novel. Toby's a restaurant and theatre critic with a bestseller to his name. They've got no plans to collaborate on another magazine. Cosmo Landesman is the Sunday Times film critic. He and Toby are still good mates.
And you can watch more clips on the story of the Modern Review at bbc.co.uk/BBC4.